Once upon a time, there was a world in which people who were in vulnerable times got the care that they needed. Let's take a look at what happens when providing care for someone who is particularly vulnerable. So we've got a patient and care provider here. And this signifies the storm cloud in the room, feeling of either sadness, disappointment, anger, despondency, guilt, shame, anything. But it could be one that makes room for some hope or joy. We've got a little angel here with some TLC. And then this is just flowers that often show up with patients, general good wishes, and this is the privacy curtain that you often see in the hospital. So in a perfect visit, everything that the patient feels or the care receiver feels, it doesn't have to be a patient. It could be anyone in our lives who's feeling more vulnerable. But for my example, I'm going to use the visual of the patient in the hospital bed. In a perfect visit, any feeling that they have is valid, no matter how that feeling makes the person who's providing care feel. So if they say, I feel so happy that I'm in the hospital, and the care provider says to themselves, are you crazy? You just broke all the important joints in your body and you're happy, right? Who knows why this person is happy? Maybe they feel like they finally have a chance to slow down and receive care because they're always the one hustling around providing care to other people. Who knows? The job of the care provider is to say, oh my goodness, tell me more, right? Some version of that. And open up space for the care receiver to share what they would like to share on their terms. Not to say, oh my, this is a really dire situation. We gotta get you all the care you need and gotta make sure you're okay. And that comes out of this caregiver's sense of helplessness, sense of needing to do their part to help the patient or the care receiver. What if they feel angry? I'm such a good person. How could this be happening to me? I know I should think positively, but that doesn't work. Imagine if this care provider said, oh, it'll work. You got to keep trying. Don't just say something doesn't work and give up that easily. Come on. Let's try a new technique. Let's try a new affirmation technique. That is not what the care receiver needs. What they need is to explore their feelings and have those feelings affirmed and accepted first. Doesn't mean they always have to stay there forever, right? But the job of this care provider, this chaplain, is to validate. Now, other disciplines may have different approaches, but in spiritual care, it's very, very nuanced. And so when this chaplain walks in the room, they may feel like they bring in some TLC, some grace from this dove. And they don't have an agenda, but they should have an intention. The intention should be to bring non-anxious presence, unconditional positive regard, and then to meet the patient where they are and to help the patient access the patient's inner sense of strength or resilience. Whatever resources the patient has is their job to facilitate and empower them. Only sometimes does the chaplain guide or give advice. I would say that is that's under certain circumstances only. Like if the patient says, "What do you think, chaplain?" Or "What do you believe, chaplain?" Okay, so the patient is feeling like positive thoughts don't work. Say, "Well, when you have a negative thought, what might that be? Do you feel comfortable saying it out loud?" Patient might say, "Well, if I had just spent my youth being happy, then I wouldn't be sick right now. But instead, I spent my youth serving others and serving God out of a sense of duty and obligation. And now I not only didn't get to do the things I wanted, but now I'm too sick to pursue the dreams that I had." That's so real, right? I mean, no amount of positive thinking can really be a band-aid over such a gaping sense of just disappointment and frustration and anger and who knows, right? And so in that moment, this chaplain is holding space. Let's imagine this bubble right here. This imaginary space for the patient to share whatever they are feeling. And that doesn't mean that they have to feel that way, right? Because they have the boundaries to know this is where I end, this is where you begin, but we both step into this shared experience right now. That boundary gives them the ability to actually connect in a deeper way because it's really not at all about them. It's about them. So that frees up the chaplain to say, I hear what you're saying in that you regret perhaps not putting yourself first when you were younger and could have had the opportunity to be happy. And maybe you feel like you've missed your chance now that you're sick to ever do the things you wanted, right? So reflecting back what you think you hear without judgment, without interpretation, just to make sure you understood first. And one helpful technique is to say, does that land with you? Does that feel accurate to how you're feeling, right? And even if the patient didn't express themselves perfectly the first time, checking in with them helps them to nuance what they said. So maybe the patient will say, "Yeah, that's exactly how I feel, regret." Or the patient could correct you and say, "Oh, well, I know I sounded like I regretted it, but I mean, it's not like I regret doing what I thought was right. It's just I wish I had a better alternative," right? So it gives them a chance to figure out what they're thinking too by having someone mirror it back to them. So a lot of people used to say, "Oh my goodness, you must be such an angel. You must be so nice to visit sick people and just bring them words of hope and bring them comfort." I actually don't do that as a chaplain. I don't come in with a package of hope and let them unwrap it like it's my birthday present. I don't come in with words of hope that I say, "Here, pick a card and let's see which word of hope is for you today." No, it's actually the art of holding space and letting someone's truest experience come out. And what if they don't speak? What do you do then? That is actually some of the most beautiful thing. If it's safe to do so, you can hold their hand, you can stroke their hand, or you can just sit there and take them in. If they have eye contact, you can maintain that gaze. And it takes a certain level of comfort with yourself to be able to hold someone's gaze. So a lot of the work happens outside the visit. What is the chaplain doing on a regular basis to tune in with themselves, accept all parts of themselves, and understand how they feel in every moment so that they can do the same with and for another person, right? If you're going to be able to help a patient be seen, you're going to have to be able to see yourself and have people in your life who see you. You're not going to expect your patient to do that for you, but do you have friends? Do you have a spiritual community? Do you have people who can be really honest with you? Do you have a therapist? Have you worked through your issues? Are you aware of the issues you're not yet worked through, right? Because when you hold that gaze, you are seeing another and they are seeing you, and that is very powerful. The eyes are the window into the soul, right? If the patient is unconscious, you can still hold space and take in their very being. Breathe in and out. There is a sort of somatic understanding that defies words. And when we just allow ourselves to simply be in another person's presence, it's pretty sacred. We recognize their dignity and their worth, and we don't have to fix or do anything. Simply being there is called the ministry of presence, right? That's symbolized by this little dove here. All right, this cat. It could be the cat in the room, the elephant in the room, right? What are the feelings that are present? And can we make friends with them? When we make friends with them and let them come a little closer, we can see that they're actually not that scary, right? A few things not to do. Do not ask close-ended questions. That means asking questions that can only be answered yes or no. Do you feel hope? I don't know. Do you feel sad? Sometimes. Do you feel mad? No, right? That shuts down a conversation. So practice in everyday conversation or journal prompts, ways to open up and invite a conversation. So you can ask, what would it mean for you to have some sort of quality of life right now, given the circumstances? That opens up a whole new range. The patient could talk about today, like, man, it'd be great if I could get a beer. Or it could open up to a bigger thing, like, I just wish my grandchildren would stop fighting before I go, right? Now, if the patient is impaired in some way, then you can use close-ended questions. So they can nod, they can squeeze your hand for yes or no. That's the only time I would pull out the yes, no, close-ended questions, is if the patient has capacity that only allows for that. All right, so these skills all came naturally to this little squirrel for the most part, because they had seen it done not well. They had seen other people go visit people in hospitals, and this includes psychiatric hospitals and regular medical hospitals, and say, tell yourself the truth, or this is what the Bible says. Don't listen to what your feelings say, right? The truth is more important. And that, by and large, alienated and drove the patient away. And so this little squirrel took note and said, that's what not to do. Okay. They also saw it when someone was sick and someone came in and said, oh my gosh, this reminds me of when I was sick, and oh my gosh, I had so much pain, and blah, 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 blah. All right, that's fine, but hey, this person is tired right now. Do they really need to hear your story and hold space for you, right? Now, at the very basis of holding space for another person is being willing to really see them on their terms. How do they want you to know them, right? That means that we do not get to label them, we do not get to make our own assumptions about them, and any interpretation or reflection we offer back has to be respectful of the patient. So we can say, I see a certain resilience in you, that you've overcome 5 different reoccurrences of this symptom. I think you're so strong, right? This could be my legitimate view of the patient. But if the patient says, no, I don't feel strong today, I feel like a failure because I've continued to come back to the hospital, then you know what? That's what the narrative gets to be. But we don't just sit there and say, oh, okay, right? We work with it. We say, oh, wow, to feel failure that sounds kind of demoralizing. Do you see yourself as someone who usually succeeds? Is this the one time that you feel like you couldn't do it? And the patient might say, yeah, I've always been able to put my nose to the grindstone and make the best out of anything. And it's like, this is the one thing I can't control in my life, and I can't make it better. Wow, tell me more about those experiences where you were able to overcome. Well, back in the day when I was trying to get through school, I failed the entrance exam 5 times, and I kept taking it and taking it. Finally, I got through. Wow, so it sounds like you've developed perseverance and that you're not going to accept no as an answer. Yeah, which is why this diagnosis is so painful, because it doesn't matter what I want or what I try to do. If I do everything the doctor says, it's like the disease has its own mind. I see that this is a new kind of challenge then that maybe needs some new coping skills for you. You see how you're still guiding them, you're still reflecting back, you're not encouraging them to stay stuck in a loop, but you really have to partner with them, alongside them, rather than decide for them. So from that conversation, they could explore, what do you think might work for you now when your former coping mechanisms don't seem to work anymore? Well, I guess I have to accept that my body is different from my brain. I felt like I could control my brain and discipline it to learn anything, to think any positive way that I wanted to, but my body, it's just different. It doesn't listen to me. Oh, so that means that you have to accept what your body's doing, and sometimes it doesn't follow what you will it to follow. Yeah. Okay, maybe a little silence as patient ponders what's happening. I kind of feel relieved that that I can't make it happen. That's weird. Why do I feel relieved now that I'm not in control? I wonder if that relief is an encouragement for you to start receiving what happens to you. How does that land? I never thought about it that way before, because I was always taught that you make your own life, you determine your destiny. But I guess when it comes to health, all we can do is our best. You see how they're still kind of like they're co-creating a way of thinking together, but it's very respectfully done. The chaplain didn't come in and say, I know you're a strong man, you're used to being successful, but right now you just have to accept what's happening to you. See how much harsher that is? So we do bring in hope and cheer and some sort of spiritual intention, but the real feelings right here are really important. We have to make friends with them and make space for them. They deserve to have a seat at this conversational table. Another thing, so one thing is to stick with open-ended questions unless the patient has a particular limitation. The other thing is to accept all emotions that come. There are no good or bad emotions. And then we work in dialogue with them to stay engaged and then move with the patient to where they would like to go. The last thing is unconditional positive regard, right? So if the chaplain doesn't fully accept themselves, they're going to put a lot of pressure on themselves to succeed or to make a difference in this visit, right? But if they really accept themselves that they are enough, and all they have to do is show up and let maybe the spirit guide them, that takes a lot of pressure off. And then they're able to really hear what the patient means and maybe understand the meaning behind the words and not be so in their head formulating a response every time the patient speaks, but to let the patient's sharing come into their whole system and to embrace that, and then to move with the patient as they explore together. That is something that can't really be explained. It can only be experienced. Often when we've done it or received it. And I would encourage each of us to ponder what that means. Is there a time that you really felt seen? You really felt like someone understood you. Maybe they didn't say much. They didn't even say it correctly, but maybe one look, one sigh of empathy showed you that, you you can't say the right thing sometimes, but you can really just breathe and show like, wow, I really heard you. I really understood you. When that happens, it's like time stops. And that is what I would call a sacred moment. Shabbat Shalom. More to come on clips from chaplaincy. I hope this was helpful and provided some insight into the art and the skill of chaplaincy. This was fun to make. Till next time, be present. Bye.